Well, rain, 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 and more rain. So, Derrell, how's this rain impacted cattle markets?
Well, you know, if you look in Oklahoma, obviously we do have a lot of wet, sloppy conditions, which is a management headache for most folks. We've had enough rain recently. There's some localized flooding, which, you know, could be a more serious issue, but it's, again, mostly a management headache. And in a little broader context, feedlots around the country are dealing with a lot of wet, sloppy conditions. Again, I don't think that's probably having a market level impact so much. It certainly affects performance and again, is a challenge for those producers. Even more broadly than that, you know, we're at a time now when you know, we've got lots of corn and we're anticipating continuation of favorable feed prices from a livestock perspective, but we go another 10 days or 2 weeks with little corn planting progress around the country, we could start to see some weather market impacts that will show up in prices for feed and may begin to impact livestock producers from that standpoint.
You mentioned flooding. Has these type of conditions or those type of conditions impacted, you know, cattle with cattle losses at all?
Well, I haven't heard any new numbers for a while. You know, I think it's pretty generally recognized now that the losses of cattle during the flood, directly due to the floods, wasn't nearly as big as maybe earlier anticipated, but there certainly were some losses. More broadly than that, we had a lot of weather conditions, you know, blizzards and so on that caused some cattle losses. Some of those landed right on top of calving, so lots of baby calves.
So what's the news with feeder and fed cattle prices?
Well, having said all of that about the weather impacts, you know, we did see a pretty typical seasonal spring for feeder and fed cattle prices. So we went up through the first quarter. We appeared to have peaked out in April. It's pretty clear now that we have moved past that. We've seen a significant drop in fed cattle prices here in the last 10 days or so. Feeder cattle prices also look like they have generally peaked, especially for the lighter weight cattle, although again, there's still a little bit of grazing demand that perhaps is a little delayed because we're kind of slow getting out on pasture.
Yeah, well, speaking of the summer, you know, grilling season's going to be kicking off pretty soon if it hasn't already. The weather's getting warmer. So how is beef demand looking this season?
Well, we saw pretty good evidence of the grilling demand, you know, again, a month ago. With the buying getting in place for starting with Memorial Day weekend, that all takes place about a month ahead of time at least. And we saw that with boxed beef prices moving up to that, you know, early April to mid-April peak. Again, those boxed beef prices now have come off of that. Part of that's because that initial wave of buying is done, although, you know, again, summer demand looks pretty good. The other thing is that seasonal increases in beef production are really kicking in now. So we're seeing bigger slaughter numbers. The weights are slowly at least matching last year's levels. They're not as much down as they were. So we're going to see more tonnage on the market, and that's going to pull us down seasonally. But all of that said, it looks like the beef demand has held very good this year.
All right, thanks, Derrell. Derrell Peel, Livestock Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.